EA Sports College Basketball is coming back? Maybe? We better tell you who would be the top 10 rated players in the game this season.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Friday. Happy Independence Day. Blow something up. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball. I almost made Andy choke on his coffee. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We're your host. That is Andy Patton choking on his coffee. I'm Isaac Schade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for making us your first listener watch to get your weekend going the right way. We want to remind you can catch every single episode ad-free on Amazon Music. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Special shout out, Andy, to all the everydayers here with us, all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord as well. Fun show coming up today, Andy, and it's all surrounding the potential, probable, hinted at return of EA Sports College Basketball. We don't want to just talk about the game because that's dumb and doesn't make any sense. So Andy actually came up with all sorts of fun games to play surrounding it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with, if the game was actually coming out this season, the 25-26 season, who would be the top 10 ranked players in the game? And then we're actually going to have a draft in segments 2 and 3. Drafting guys that missed out on being part of the game. We'll give you all the parameters and details of that when we get there. Andy will lay that out for you as though he was a quiz show, fast talker, whatever it is. So, Andy, here's what we're going to do to start. EA Sports announces the return of this college basketball video game. The expected release is in 2028, so still a couple years away from now. I'll be like in my 80s by that point. This game was released annually from 97 through 2009. Crazy stuff. So the 08-09 season was the last one. You said earlier, if we remember correctly, that Blake Griffin was the last cover athlete. It was discontinued in 2010 because of the pending O'Bannon lawsuit. But guess what? It's a new era, baby. And so bring it back. So, Andy, this top 10 is who would be the top 10 rated players in the 25-26 season. It is not necessarily a who are the top 10 players in college basketball this year, thinking about context. It's going to be probably a similar list to that, but it's void of context of team and coach and all that, just players as individuals. And so that's what we're going to do. Andy, I'm going to leave it to you to say whether you want to go 1 to 8 or 8 to 1. And the reason, folks, I say that is because we landed pretty easily on a top 1 through 8, and then we each picked a separate 9 and 10.
Yeah, first of all, I'm very excited that this game is, as you said, likely coming back. EA made kind of a vague announcement that didn't confirm, but this is how they confirmed that their like the PGA Tour game was coming back and their college football game was coming back, was like an announcement, teaser announcement, and the real announcement a few days later. So I expect that the actual announcement is coming very soon. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, since then, Ed O'Bannon has actually written a guest article for Sportico talking about
Did he really?
this game coming back. Yeah, and he kind of said he's happy it's coming back. He's, was kind of EA's pariah for a while and all that. So that's pretty cool to kind of see him kind of reacting to this, as he was such a big part of obviously this game ending, but also just everything that has happened in college basketball in the last couple of years and the House settlement and all of that. But I think we'll start with 8. We'll go up to 1, and then we can kind of pick those guys that we had right at the bottom. And I 8, 7, and 6 are all guys that stand out to me, Isaac, because do you see what they all have in common, or what I see all 3 of them having in common? 2 of them have something very specific in common, and one of them not quite the same. But anything stand out to you?
Yes, the thing that stands out to me is that they are all now at the high major level, but they did not start there. In fact, I think the thing that you're pointing out that 2 of the 3 of them stand out is that they started out in the Mountain West Conference. Is that? Oh man, we're same mind. And so one of them, like, we can tease it and see if people can get it. One of these guys was at UAB, is now transferring up. And then the other two actually were not only in the Mountain West, but on the same team, for crying out loud, for little Richard Pitino's team.
Yeah, I cannot believe that. I mean, that team was good, but it's hard for me to imagine that a team that had both these guys on it did not do a little bit better for New Mexico with those two guys. But we'll start at 8. It's many of you probably already guessed this. It's Yaxel Lendeberg, obviously tremendous player for UAB this last year. Very, very close to staying in the NBA draft, but ultimately decides to join Dusty May at Michigan. I'm very excited to see what he can do for the Wolverines. 7 and 6 are Donovan Dent at 7 and JT Toppin at 6. Again, as Isaac said, both of them at New Mexico at the same time. Toppin has since transferred to Texas Tech and had a tremendous season last year for the Red Raiders and is back again to play for them once again, while Dent hit the transfer portal after a All-American caliber season last year at New Mexico. Now he's joining Mick Bruin, Cronin at UCLA, and I think is very likely going to be in that All-American conversation, if not a first-team All-American for UCLA. We'll see how much he scores. I think that's the question.
Okay.
He's a very good scorer, but UCLA, they don't go at a very, very, very quick pace.
Andy, that was my one pause with adding Donovan Dent. And so let me ask you, did you, given the transition to a more defensive-minded team and coach in Mick Bruins, shouts to Mick Bruins, did you have any hesitation adding Donovan Dent, or is his talent such that it just doesn't even matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this context, like a computer system would rank him really highly, not necessarily factoring that in. So I think he's one of the 10 best players in college basketball from a talent perspective, from a performance perspective from last year. I do think that his numbers this year, like there are guys on this list, or even guys who maybe didn't quite make this list, who I wouldn't be shocked if they put up like bigger scoring numbers just purely because of UCLA's pace and everything. Dent's the best player on a good UCLA team. I mean, they have talent. Tyler Bilodeau is very good. They have some Eric Daly, some other guys on that team that I think are going to be good. I think Dent's pretty clearly their best player. And we talk about it as if like players don't put up big numbers at UCLA. Johnny Juzang did, Jaime Jaquez did. Like it is, you're more than capable of putting up big numbers for Mick Cronin, and I do think that Dent will end up being the guy who does that for them.
Dude, that's a great point, Andy. I wasn't even thinking in that context of like Jaime. And great observation there, man. And by the way, I wasn't even processing the mid-major of it all with all three of those guys. That's a great point. It's funny with New Mexico. It's kind of similar to like, I always laugh about like, how did those Thunder teams with Durant and Russ and Serge Ibaka and who am I leaving out of that? Harden. Like I know they were young and it was early, but still it's crazy. All right, Andy, top 5. And this is where things get interesting because there's a couple returning All-Americans from last year. JT Toppin is one of those. He was a consensus second team, but we've got a couple others. And then there's yet again some very high-level elite freshmen joining the ranks. And so it's interesting. We have paired together now a trio of freshmen at 5, 4, and 3. Andy, I'm just going to list them off together and then we'll respond to that, which obviously then indicates for those who are thinking ahead that we have 2 returners at number 2 and number 1. Number 5 is Cam Boozer at Duke, along, by the way, with his twin brother who didn't make this list, but he's going to be great. And perhaps controversially, perhaps not, because he's been surpassed in some of the recruiting rankings. AJ DeBanza at BYU, with all his Marriott money, comes in at number 4 on this list. Kansas's Darren Peterson comes in at number 3. Andy, what do you make of us landing this trio here at 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah, I mean, the one and done freshmen are always going to be guys that show up well on this list. Like Cooper Flagg would have been probably a 99 coming in last year. I think all 3 of these guys will end up, again, if the video game were coming out this year, we'd probably all end up getting very similar ratings before the season begins, with guys like Ament and Koa Pete and some of the other freshmen just kind of a tier or a tick below them. But I think these 3 are the consensus, top 3 picks projected in the upcoming draft, the top 3 freshmen coming into the college basketball space. I think you could argue ordering them many different ways. I think I probably would put DiBanza ahead of Peterson, but ultimately I think if this were a legitimate video game, the likelihood that all 3 of them would have the same rating or a very, very similar rating feels pretty high to me.
So are you saying I strong-armed you into ranking Peterson, good grief, above DeBanza? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Let me kiss my bicep. Okay, Andy, and so that brings us to number 2 and number 1, both of whom are returning consensus All-Americans. PJ Haggerty, number 2, a second team consensus All-American, leaves Memphis, winds up at Kansas State. And then Purdue's point guard Braden Smith does everything, even as a diminutive guy. The lone returning first team consensus All-American from last year. Andy, is this right at number 2 and number 1?
Yeah, Braden Smith was the most obvious player when we started thinking about this list. Like he was number 1A for sure. I don't think there's any doubt. I think you could maybe quibble with where Haggerty is on this list, but it's not debatable at all that he belongs on this list. I think both these guys are great picks, high scoring guards, would be very fun players to play with in a video game too, which I think makes them even more fun to have them at the top of this list.
Yep. Great points. Andy, we got to go back to 9 and 10 because, as I said, the reason we did this, folks, is because I feel like quickly and easily, Andy, landed on these as a top 8. And then we really, not arguing or debating, just had a hard time landing on a 9 and 10. And so we said, you know what? Let's give a bunch of guys love. Let's each pick a 9 and 10. Give us your 9 and 10.
Yeah, I stuck with the theme of the mid-major guys transferring up. I'm going with Bennett Sturts at number 9. Just such a talented player last year at Drake. I think he's going to do awesome things at Iowa this year, and I think he would be a guy that would be a very popular player to play with on this game for sure. And then I'm going with another transfer at number 10, Zion Williams, transferring from Texas Tech, which we've talked about them a few times already, transferring out to NC State to go play for Will Wade's team. Do-it-all forward. He's so versatile. He can score so many different ways. He doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, which is, I think, why he'd have such a really high rating on this video game.
Andy, my 9 and 10, let's stick with the mid-major theme. Jacoby Gillespie, he was at Maryland last year, but he started at Belmont in his home state, and that's where he returns now to play for Tennessee. I just think there's so much that he does so well, kind of similar to Braden Smith. He affects the game and winning in a bunch of ways. And then we really struggle because there's a whole bunch of SEC guards that are dudes, but I think Tahad Pettiford is going to take a massive step forward this year for Auburn, because Janai's not there, CBM's not there anymore. And so I think his rating in this game would be really high. Andy, I'm just going to through a bunch of honorable mention names we had. Alex Caravan, although we struggled with that because UConn, it's like, I don't even know how highly rated he would be because there are other individual players that might be better. Milos Uzan at Kentucky, TKR at Purdue, Jaden Quaintance also at Kentucky, I should say. Boogie Fland, Tommy Houck. We thought a lot about Florida. There's so many interesting pieces there. Some of those other SEC guards, LeBaron Philon at Bama, Josh Hubbard at Mississippi State. We looked at Baby Peja, Andre Stojakovic transferring to Illinois, Nate Biddle back at Oregon, Magoon Guath. Small sample size at SDSU last year, but good grief. He is a freak and might have a massive breakout this year. And then we also had Malik Renault on the list as well. Honorable mentions, Andy.
Lots of honorable mentions, lots of great players in college basketball. Should be a lot of fun this upcoming season. But Isaac, I want to, instead of looking ahead, I want to look back because we had 15 years where we did not get any NCAA basketball video games. And there was a lot of really, really good players that nobody got to use in those video games. We're going to talk about our favorites from that era by doing a draft. We're each going to draft a 5-person starting lineup to project our favorite players, the best players that didn't get in those video games over the last 15 years. All of that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, we've all been there. Logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer and closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Are you tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Because Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay, no hidden fees. Folks, it is the 4th of July, and we have some potential serious fireworks in LA with the Astros in town to face the Dodgers. That should be an incredible series. Tickets are available for Friday's game for just $97 with box seats on sale for under $300. So folks, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Well, folks, we're going to get into our draft here, taking a look at EA Basketball's last version of their college basketball game was way back in the 2008-2009 season. So every season from 09-10 all the way until this last season, 24-25, there were not any video games. And we want to talk about who are the biggest names, the biggest stars in the sport that did not get their opportunity to be a part of the EA Sports video game franchise. So we're going to take a look. We're going to have Isaac flip a coin. We're going to determine from there who's going first. Again, each of us are drafting our kind of starting 5 or 5 favorites, however we want to end up kind of making this work. I know Isaac just said he's really stressed, so I don't want to put too much pressure on him.
I'm very stressed
to get this thing taken care of. But Isaac, when you're ready, go ahead and flip that coin and we can get into this draft because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I don't want to pick Ralph Sampson too early. Okay, here we go. Andy, you call it in the air, heads or tails?
Okay. Tails.
Dang it. Tails.
Win.
All right, go ahead.
I get the player that I think you very likely would have taken, even though your dedicated fan base maybe wouldn't have loved it.
Just say it. I'm
going to take Zion Williamson at number 1. Zion would have been, oh my gosh, how much fun would that have been? He would have been a creative player. Like he literally, like that's the kind of player that you create on every video game I've ever had. You just create somebody and you max out their size, you max out their weight, and you make them good at everything. That's basically what Zion Williamson was. He was a freak athlete, tremendously talented college player, and would be like literally look like a video game player while he was actively in college. So why not pick him to be the starter on your video game team?
I'm so mad, right? Like that was the only thing I felt great about in this whole thing because to your point, he is a living, breathing video game player. Like I feel like he's the clear number 1 in this, and there's a massive gap to anyone else, right? Yep. And so great choice. I mean, there was nowhere else to go.
When we've done these in the past, we haven't really cared who drafted first, but this one was like, we should flip a coin because I think we both knew who was going to go number 1.
Yeah. Okay. I did have a slight debate in my mind about who would go number 1. And so I did already have a player lined up for if I went second. Do you want to guess who it is, or are you going to not for fear of giving away somebody that I might not take?
Is it another one and done freshman who plays a pretty similar position for another blue blood program?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, then yes, I think I know who it is.
Go ahead and say it then.
Is it AD?
It is Anthony Davis. I'm going to take him with the 2nd overall pick to start my team. Yeah, this dude, absolutely absurd. Playing, obviously, for Kentucky in the 11-12 season. 14 points a game, 10 rebounds a game. Andy, 4.7 blocks a game Anthony Davis had. Almost had a 15-10-5 season. It's stupid. Nice. Won the national championship, won the Wooden Award, most outstanding player of the NCAA tournament, first team AP All-American, SEC player of the all this stuff, SEC defensive player of the year. And I think similar to Zion, that's part of it, is it was both sides of the court for him. And it's absurd. And while I would love to have Zion, and I think there's a big gap, I think Anthony Davis is the clear second player that should be taken here.
Yeah. Davis was the obvious choice. It's funny when I was listing out like forward one and done for a blue blood team. Like there's a few other guys on my list that qualify for that. In fact, a lot of them also wouldn't have been a different blue blood than where Zion Williamson went. So there's a few of them there that I could pick out of, and I'm not quite going to go that direction yet. I'm actually going to go with the first non-freshman on the list. And I don't know how well this front court pairing works necessarily, but I think it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to go with 2-time National Player of the Year, Purdue center Zach Edey with my next pick. I don't know what my guard play is going to look like, but I know I'm going to score a whole crap load of points around the rim with Zach Edey and Zion Williamson on the team together.
Yeah, that it's insane, Andy. Like I love it. He's got to be there. It makes a ton of sense. Fine. Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-time National Player of the Year. Gosh, there's so many dudes. Andy, I don't want to go recency bias here, but I think I've had trouble thinking of where Cooper Flagg should go. Mm-hmm. And I think him falling much further than this would be absurd of us.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Cooper Flagg here with my second pick. I think that is, by the way, a great front court pairing with AD. I mean, Cooper Flagg, what an absolute...
I wonder if we'll ever see Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg play together, by the way. Who knows?
Ooh. That's fun. I didn't even think about that.
I think we might.
Yeah, that'll happen. That's funny. Yeah, we're gonna actually find out how good of a front court they are.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Look, his lone year at Duke, 19.2 points a game, 7.5 boards, 4.2 assists, 1.4 steals, 1.4 blocks. That's 2.8 stocks, Andy. That's crazy. Led Duke, who had 5 selections in this draft, by the way, led Duke in all 5 of those categories: National Player of the Year, First Team All-American, ACC Player of the Year. Finished in the Final Four, could have easily won the national championship. I love that pick, and I think it makes a ton of sense.
Well, what I'm realizing is that pretty much the rest of my list is all bigs, and I've already taken 2 bigs, and I don't think that I can start most of the names I'm looking at the 3 very comfortably. So I feel like I have to skip down a little bit farther on my list here, but there's still some really.
Wow, so you're going for fit over best player available here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm debating. Like, there's a few guys that I think you'd argue I would take over, but like, I don't know that it would work roster wise, and I think I want to try to dig into some of these guards here because we haven't really looked at any of the guards yet.
Sure.
Lot of fun.
And it's funny. Let me just say, it's funny that that's true when we think of how guard dominated basketball and in particular college basketball is.
Yeah, I think, some of the most fun names were bigs, and I think that's part of why. But yeah, it's there's a lot of really good guards we could choose from here too. And I think I'm going to make a choice that's maybe a little bit, I don't want to say controversial, but maybe not the name a lot of people would think of. But I just adored watching him in college and rooted for him in the NBA, and his NBA career wasn't as he wasn't as dominant as long as I would have liked him to be, but he had some really good stretches. And I'm going to go with Victor Oladipo here. Really loved watching Depot play at Indiana, and I just think he'd be a fun addition, and just the kind of guy that, like, knowing myself and my video game tendencies, like, I would absolutely love playing with Depot. So he's the guy that I'm going to pick here.
Okay, a little Hoosier love. I'm here for it, Andy. Okay. So, folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break because we're at the halfway point of our draft. Andy's got 3 of his 5. I've got 2 of my 5. And coming up after the break, we're going to pick the final 5 out of this thing. So, to recap where we're at right now, Andy has Zion Williamson, Zach Edey, and Victor Oladipo. I've got Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg, and I've got 3 more spots to fill out. Going to be really interesting. By the way, we'd love to hear where you agree with us, where you disagree with us. Let us know. Pick your own, have your own draft with some friends that you love. So, back half of the draft coming up in just a second. All right, we're continuing on our draft here. Andy has done 3 of his. I've got 2 of mine. So I'm up on the clock, and I've taken so far, Andy, 2, 1, and done freshman. I think I'm going to go with another one here, but I'm going to move to the backcourt. Unlike the previous 2 guys, this is not a National Player of the Year for some reason, but this is a guy, Andy, that led the nation in both scoring and assists in his freshman year. And I got to go with Trae Young.
Yeah, he was one of my choices, so good pick.
27.4 points a game, 8.7 assists, 1.7 steals a game, a first-team AP All-American, all Big 12 first team. Good grief. Maybe there's some usage issues with he and Cooper and Anthony Davis, but the way that he assists, the way that Cooper can move the ball, the way that Anthony Davis can move the ball, I think the 3 of them together could actually work really well. And I know we're not necessarily trying to construct a team here, but I think Trae fits really well with both of those guys.
That's a great pick. I had Young as one of my, if not my top option for my point guard, since I'm kind of considering Oladipo off the ball. So sure. I'm not going with the point guard here, though. So I guess that'll be my last spot if I do end up going positionally. But I'm going to go with a guy that I think is probably more of a 4, but I'm going to play him at the 3 in this fictional lineup. One of the best scorers in college basketball, a guy who quite literally put his program on the map. And that is the son of Creighton coach Greg McDermott. That is Doug McDermott, 3-time All-American, guy who scored 23 plus points per game 3 years in a row for the Blue Jays, led the conference in effective field goal percentage all 4 years that he was in college. Tremendous rebounder, elite 3-point shooter, 46% for his career. That included shooting 45% on 6 attempts per game as a senior. Just tremendous scorer, tremendous shooter, and I think he fits nicely on a roster that's going to have the ball in the paint a lot with Zach and Zion down low.
Oh, Andy, I literally was like, should I take Trey or Dougie McBuckets next? I don't think Andy will take Dougie this soon, so I'm gonna leave. Dang it,
Nope.
I'm so mad at. No, it's funny. I had the same thought. I was like, I think he could play the 3 alongside Cooper and AD. So I honestly, it's a great choice, dude. I love it. I think he's probably off a lot of people's radar, but he wildly and definitely deserves to have his name called as part of our draft here. Okay, so that brings it back to me. Couple more names I'm looking at here, and I think I'm trying to decide between I think 2 other guards right now. One is more based on his skill. The other is based on how like just utter sheer like his team was insane while he was in college. And I think I'm going to go with the skill side of it and just keep my trend of one and dones going. And I'm going to go back to Rep Arena, and I'm going to take some John Wall, who was literally the first year after this game ended, Kentucky 2009-10, the 2010 National Freshman of the Year, consensus first team All-American, SEC Player of the Year, 16.6 points, 6.5 assists, 4.3 rebounds a game. Again, I know there might be some usage stuff between he and Trey, but they're both such good assist men that I think they would draw enough attention that I think it would just be insane the way they would be able to play off each other and the other guys on the court as well. So I'm going to go with John Wall there.
Do you know whose basketball reference page I had open while I was doing my research while you were making your pick?
No.
It was John Wall. So, well done there. I'm debating between a couple other guards here for my final spot. Debating between a one and done guard and a 4-year starter, and having a hard time picking which one that I want. I'll go with the older guy. I'm going to go with Malcolm Brogdon. Just a solid veteran guy, 2-time All-American. He was a second teamer as a junior. He was a first teamer as a senior. 18 points a game, four boards, 3 assists, solid 3-point shooter. I wanted kind of like a more pass first guy, and he wasn't quite that. So I was kind of debating, like, do I go with Nembhard? Do I go with some of the other more kind of passing guards? But I couldn't resist the overall kind of body of work of Brogdon and the defensive impact he makes. I just think he fits really nicely here.
Man, Andy, that's so good. Okay, since I have the last pick, I'm just going to start naming the guys I'm picking between. I've got 2 UConn guys I'm thinking between. One is Kemba Walker. One is Jalen Brunson, 2-time national champion, national player of the year, by the way. Another is Frank the Tank Kaminsky. And another is Buddy Hield, just an elite scorer. Crazy that we would have 2 Sooners drafted in this 10-man draft. Crazy stuff. So that's the guys I'm picking between. I don't think, like, if I'm trying to pick an actual team, I don't think Frank the Tank goes so well with Anthony Davis and Cooper Flagg. So maybe I'll try to keep it an actual team, which means like Buddy. Basically, I'm looking at like a 2 or a 3 because Trey and John Wall are basically the 1 and 2 interchangeably. So it's between Kemba, Jalen, and Buddy Hield. I think Brunson's best stuff is just as a playmaker, but I've already got that with Trey and John Wall. So Andy, man, I'm gonna go Buddy Hield. 2016 national or Wooden Award player, 17.4 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, 1.3 steals, first team AP All-American in 16, Big 12 player of the year, back-to-back years in 15 and 16. Anytime I think of him, I think of that was triple overtime game at Allen Fieldhouse. I mean, just one of my favorite games of the past decade and a half or whatever it would be. I could have easily gone with any of these guys, but Buddy, like, and I'm also thinking again in terms of video game, like I feel like they would take into account his presence and his effervescence, and I think that's a factor in it as well.
Really good pick. He was on my list as well. I'm kind of looking at Kaminsky was on my list. I know you mentioned him. You mentioned Kemba, who was on my list too. So there's a couple, and there's a few others that I have on my list that didn't fit my roster and that I think kind of I get why they didn't quite make it, but that I think deserve a shout out. Paolo Banchero certainly deserves a shout out.
Good one.
He was the highest. I didn't put mine in a specific order, but he was the highest one on my list. Oscar Shibwe, Armando Baycott, Drew Timmage, and I Broom, kind of all these like bigs who were really productive, but just not quite at the level of the bigs that we ended up taking. Chet Holmgren, I think for some similar reasons, kind of in that mix. Well, even guys like Ryan Kalkbrenner and some of the more recent ones too. Luka Garza, Obi Toppin were both on my list.
Obi for a video game is that's so good, Andy. Gosh,
Obi would be like wouldn't be the highest rated out of these guys, but he'd be so much fun. And then when I picked Brogdon, I was choosing between Brogdon and Cade Cunningham. I think Cunningham has a strong argument in this mix too. We already had too many Oklahoma guys. We didn't need an Oklahoma State guy either, though. So maybe that's why he doesn't quite make it. And then the Louisville backcourt, Russ Smith, Peyton Siva, I had them both on the list here as well.
Russ's video game. Yep, that's a good point. So Andy, before the show, I said to you, or before we did this, I said there's one school that I don't expect that you wouldn't think of to be on here, but they might have two guys drafted and could have a third if it was 1 year earlier, and that was Oklahoma, because ended up having I've got both Trey and Buddy Hield on my team. Had we bumped this back 1 year, it would have been cover athlete
Blake Griffin
as well. So that's crazy to think about. Boomer Sooner, baby. How about it?
Yeah, that is funny. I'm looking just at our rosters here. We had a lot of multiple Kentucky guys. Obviously, that's not a surprise. Actually, did we have multiple Kentucky guys? We had.
Yeah, I had both.
Yes, you had two Kentucky guys. Okay,
my team is only made up
right?
of 3 schools.
Obviously, multiple Duke guys. No Gonzaga guys. No Carolina guys. No. Some of the other big programs we kind of missed out on. Some guys, no UCLA guys. But yeah, a really fun group here, a really eclectic group. And there's so many other names we could have chosen that we didn't even mention as honorable mentions too. Like just so many fun players over the last 15 years or so. And I had a lot of fun with this. I'm hopeful that when the game does come out, that they will have some kind of callbacks and some older teams on there, maybe like, having like the old Villanova roster or the old Carolina championship roster, stuff like that. Obviously getting the licensing and stuff is going to be part of that, but man, what a fun kind of look back on the last 15 years of college hoops. Fun way to close out the show in the week here.
Andy, you know what they should do is have Ed O'Bannon do a lot of voiceovers for it. That would be incredible.
Get him some extra money, man. He, like I said, he's all about it. He said he would love to have it for his, I think he was saying his nephews to be able to play with him. So hopefully that's something that'll happen in the future when this game comes out.
Brilliant.
Isaac, that's going to wrap it up for us today. This was so much fun way to celebrate the Independence Day, fun way to celebrate kind of the start of July. And we're getting into, we'll get some FIBA results for you all next week as that starts finishing up on Sunday. We got Summer League coming up as well. We'll keep you up to date on recruiting, transfer portal, all the conference realignment, all sorts of fun stuff. But that is going to wrap it up for us today and for this week. So folks, thank you so much for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. Cheers to the Mick Bruins. Mentioned that already. Have a great weekend, a happy and safe holiday. And until next time, peace out.
Welcome to Earth.